parked my old 2012 Honda Accord between a fancy black Porsche and a shiny white Tesla. The people in those cars slammed their doors like they owned the world. I shut mine quietly. Just like me? Quiet, but here, it had been 9 years since I last came to the Alden family house. Back then, I left without yelling or crying. I only had a small idea, an old laptop, and a cheap watch that I still wear today. Now I was 34. I wore a plain navy dress I found in my closet in Seattle. No brand, no big name, just simple and neat. I came alone. No date, no group. Just me, Sabrina. The front door was open. I walked through the big entryway and heard laughter coming from the dining room. It sounded rich and fake. The big chandelier still shined gold light over the long table. 16 fancy chairs, shiny glasses, silver forks. The smell of rich food and wine filled the room. Everything looked the same, but I had changed. My mom, Sylvia Alden, sat at the head of the table. She looked perfect and cold, like always. When she saw me, she gave a smile with no love in it. Only warning. "Well," she said loudly so the staff could hear, "the failure has arrived." A few people laughed. My brother Malcolm, the serious lawyer with the sharp tongue. Cousin Ethan, always loud about money. Lydia, Malcolm's wife, who once told me success means marrying someone rich. I stood there quietly. Then my mother said, loud and clear, "You're an embarrassment to this family." No one was shocked. Some nodded, some looked away. I didn't say anything. I just walked to the last empty chair next to one no one wanted and a silver platter. No one offered me. Across the table, Malcolm raised his glass and said, "To high standards." I didn't raise mine. No one cared. Or maybe they did. And that's why they ignored it. I looked at my old watch. It was still ticking. Still mine. And I started to remember, there's an old photo in this house from the day Malcolm graduated. From Yale. Everyone is in it, standing on the front lawn, wearing soft colors, holding fancy drinks, talking about legacy. I stood at the edge of the photo, not quite in, not quite wanted. I was 22. I had just finished my computer science degree from NYU. Not an Ivy League school, not fancy. I had a small job offer to work with a company that helped the government. I told my family during brunch. My mom blinked once and said, "That's niche." My dad didn't even look up from his phone. He said, "You know, Sabrina, we can still get you into law school." I nodded politely. The next day, I left. No big fight, no crying. I packed my 2 bags, got on a bus from Stanford, and went to Brooklyn with a dream no one believed in. That's how I started Arcadia. It began in a small apartment with bad pipes and good coffee. I worked on a used laptop. I gave pitches to people who didn't turn their cameras on. I heard no 57 times before one woman said yes. She used to work for the government. Now she invested in new companies. She gave me $200 and a simple watch. She said, "You'll need this, not just for time, but for moments." But you wore it every day after that. When I won our first government contract, I sent my parents a letter. I didn't want praise, just to tell them. My mom replied 3 weeks later. It was short. "Don't put the Alden name on something that might fail." No congratulations. No phone call. I framed that letter. Every time something went wrong, I read it again. Every time Arcadia grew, from $10 million to $100 million to $2 billion, I looked at that letter and smiled. Not because I wanted to prove something to them, but because I already had. I never came back to Connecticut. Not for birthdays, not when Lydia had twins, not even when Dad had a stroke. They never invited me. And I never asked. Until now. And here. I was back at the table surrounded by people who once told me I would never make it. But I wasn't here for them. I was here for something else. Something quiet. Something like peace. Dinner was veal, like always, with mushrooms served on expensive plates from Milan. I remembered them. Mom bought them the year she forgot my birthday. I hadn't eaten veal in years. I picked at it while Malcolm talked, about some big legal case. He held his fork like he was making a speech. Lydia proudly reminded everyone she was the youngest partner at her law firm. Ethan was shouting about money and stocks like he was in charge of an invisible band. And Sylvia, my mother, nodded and smiled like she was the queen of it all. Then she looked at me. "Still working in technology, dear?" she asked. "Not tech, not your company, just working." I nodded. "Still building systems." Ethan leaned in. "What kind of stuff? Apps? Crypto?" I could have told them. Arcadia protects 15% of the US government's secure data, but I didn't. Before I could speak, Malcolm laughed and said she used to sit up all night on an old Dell computer. Sylvia said, "We thought it was just a phase." Lydia asked if I had a team or if I still worked alone. I could have told her we had 320 employees and a new office in Tokyo. I could have told her we were bidding on a NATO deal. But I just said, "No, I have help." Malcolm smirked. "Eventually, everyone needs a real job." They all laughed quietly. It sounded sharp and fake. Sylvia tried to smooth it over. "Sabrina's always done things her own way." That word, again, different, not like us. Malcolm raised his glass again. "To the rebels in the family. Let's hope they find their way back before it's too late." I didn't lift my glass. I looked at my watch. Still ticking? Still mine. Ethan leaned in again. "My firm's investing in startups. You could pitch to us, you know. Happy to give your little project a shot," he said with a wink. Little project? I looked him in the eye and said softly, "It's not little." He laughed. "Then why haven't we heard of it?" I paused, then said, "Maybe you weren't listening." Everyone went quiet. Lydia laughed. "She's got a bite." Sylvia smiled and topped off someone's wine. "We're just teasing. Darling, it's all in good fun." But it never was. Not for me. They just never noticed. Dessert came. Some fancy fig tart I didn't eat. Malcolm was talking about Miami when there was a soft knock. A moment later, Jillian, my assistant, walked in. She was dressed in black. She only wore black when I told her to. So tonight, I knew she was here for a reason. She walked straight to me and whispered, "Sorry to interrupt, Ms. Alden, but the jet is ready. The pilots need final confirmation for Tokyo." Lydia dropped her fork. It hit her plate with a clink. I didn't react. "Thank you," I said. I picked up my napkin. "Tell Captain Reyes we'll leave as planned. We'll stop in San Francisco for the board vote. I'll join the call on the way." Jillian nodded and walked out quietly. The room fell into complete silence. But this time, they were listening. Dead silence. The kind that settles like dust. After something breaks. Ethan blinked slowly. Malcolm's jaw twitched. Sylvia sat straighter, as if perfect posture could anchor her to a reality slipping fast. "Jet," Malcolm said finally. I dabbed the corner of my mouth with a napkin. "G. Freem. We use it for intercontinental meetings. Arcadia closed a Tokyo partnership last quarter." "Arcadia?" Ethan echoed. "My company," I said simply. Sylvia narrowed her eyes. "You have a jet?" "I have a company," I corrected. "The jet is just efficient." Malcolm tried to laugh, but it came out strained, almost choked. "So, what are you saying? That you're running some kind of real operation?" I reached into my bag, pulled out my phone, and opened Bloomberg. "Here," I said, sliding it across the table. Headline: Arcadia Cloud secures 900B defense infrastructure. Contract with Department of Homeland Security. Beneath it, my photo from our DC press conference. Ethan leaned forward. "That's you?" I nodded. No flair, no justification. Sylvia reached out, then stopped short. Her fingers trembled just slightly. "Why didn't you tell us?" she asked, voice thin. "Would it have mattered?" I replied. The room froze. No one touched their tartlets. Even the air held back. I glanced at my watch. Still ticking. Still mine. Malcolm was first to break the stillness, his voice sharp, defensive, the one he used in court when pressed. He pointed at the phone. "This article could be exaggerated." I tilted my head. "You think Bloomberg inflates federal defense contracts?" He said nothing. Across the table, Ethan's lips moved silently as he reread the headline, as if the numbers might soften with repetition. Arcadia's global footprint. Valuation. 5.88 billion. He murmured like it stung. "No," I corrected gently. "We crossed 6 last month." Lydia's hand trembled as she reached for her wine and missed. Sylvia sat stiffly, eyes locked on the space where my phone had rested. Then, quietly, "You built this alone?" "Not alone," I said. "Just not with any of you." Malcolm gave a brittle laugh. We're family. You should have told us. We could have helped. We're blood. But I remembered too well. When I was 25, he'd met with father and called me a liability. Told them to keep my name off the Christmas newsletter. I didn't raise my voice. You thought I was bad for the Alden brand. I'd listened. Sylvia looked up. Families say things they don't mean. I pulled a folded letter from my wallet, creased but intact. I slid it toward her. Her letter. From 3 years ago. Typed, signed, cold. You told me not to put the Alden name on anything that might not last. She didn't touch it. Just stared. Ethan leaned in eagerly. Talked about his firm looking into tech. Possible collaboration, networks, capital. I let him finish. We're not raising, I said flatly. Lydia jumped in next, her voice soft, almost rehearsed. If we'd known, maybe things would have been different. Maybe we would have supported you. I looked at her, not angry, just tired. They were different, I said, just not for me. Sylvia reached halfway to the letter, then stopped, frozen. Not because of what I'd become, but because touching it meant admitting she wrote it. My phone buzzed. Jillian. On time. I stood, folded my napkin, placed it beside my untouched dessert. I have a board vote in 6 hours. We're bidding on a NATO contract. I turned to leave. Sylvia's voice broke through. Why tonight, Sabrina? Why come at all? I paused in the doorway, my back still to them, to see if anything had changed. I turned one last time. It hasn't. I stepped into the hallway. Behind me, the dining room sat in stunned silence, like a stage after the curtains drop and the actors don't know their lines. Then the scramble. Malcolm first, always quickest to pivot. Sabrina, wait. Maybe we should talk investments. Arcadia's expanding. There could be alignment, strategic partnership. I turned halfway, just enough to meet his eyes. You mean now that you believe I exist? He said nothing. Ethan followed. I've always believed in you. I knew you were smart. I just didn't realize... You didn't realize I stopped needing your approval years ago. I finished for him. Lydia smiled, small, polished, practiced. If you're ever hiring, I've been exploring tech-adjacent fields. I looked at her. She used to laugh when I tried to explain my work. Told a family friend I worked with screens. Can you name one programming language? I asked. Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked away. At last, Sylvia stood. She moved toward me, measured, not graceful. You're angry, she said. I understand. But don't let pride close doors that family can help keep open. That word again, family. You had 9 years to open a door, I said. You chose to paint it shut. Her voice softened, almost maternal. You're still an Alden. That means something. It means everything to you, I replied. And nothing to the world I built. She flinched, barely, but I saw it. She reached for my arm, maybe on instinct. I stepped back. Don't, I said. This isn't a fight, it's a line. My phone buzzed again. Jillian, time. Pulled on my coat. No rush, no theatrics, just closure. As I reached the front door, I looked back. At the house, not them. The stillness, the weight. You always thought I left because I failed, I said. But I left because I realized I didn't need to pass your tests. I made my own rules. I opened the door. Outside, the car waited. Engine low, driver already standing. The air was cold, but for the first time in years, it didn't touch me. The wind caught the edge of my coat. The car was warm. The driver nodded, took my bag. Jillian had chosen well. Efficient, invisible, precise. Behind me, the door creaked slightly. It didn't close. They were still watching. Of course they were. Families like mine only chase what they've already lost. I slid into the back seat. Leather. Quiet. Familiar. As the car pulled away from the Alden estate, I didn't look back. Not at the columns, not at the windows, not at the people who once measured my worth by my seat at a table, the dress I wore, or the car I drove. The silence in the car was different now. This wasn't tension. It was earned. I looked down at my wristwatch. The minute hand ticked forward. Still mine. The next. Morning, the messages came. A LinkedIn request from Lydia. A voicemail from Malcolm. We should reconnect. Family synergy has value. A long, overridden email from Ethan about collaborative innovation. And from Sylvia, a handwritten note delivered by courier. Pressed. Paper. Guilt in every corner. We should rebuild. You've made us proud. I didn't reply. I forwarded them all to Jillian. 2 words. Block list. That evening, a box arrived at the Alden estate. No card. Inside, the letter Sylvia once sent me, folded neatly. Beside it, a photo of their dinner table taken from outside. The window. My seat? Empty. The note inside read, I was there. You just didn't see me. Some of us were never really invited to the table, but we still remember who looked away. You don't have to explain. Just leave one word they never said to me, welcome.